we're stepping in the ring to open up this super awesome Storm Collectibles Jushin Thunder Liger figure. This cost a pretty penny, but this is going to be one awesome wrestling figure. So we're going to open it up and we'll just talk about Jushin Liger and why I wanted to add this figure to my collection. So let's open it up. Storm Collectibles doesn't do too many wrestling figures, only here and there. I do have a Hulk Hogan, kind of NWO and WCW time period base, so I'm a little bit familiar with them. This package, of course, a Japanese wrestler in Jushin Thunder Liger, so the back is in Japanese. It's just listing, basic stats like height, weight, and some of his moves here, like Brain Buster and things like that. Shooting Star Press. Interesting, just the name on here that it's uses the Y spelling for Jushin. Usually when they do that, the I in Liger is also a Y, but here they've kind of done both. I'm not sure what the difference is in the lettering exactly, but that's what they went with here. No real picture of Liger, just, unless this is just a stylized probably of a real picture, but just pictures of the figure. So let's just open him up here and check out what he's got. So we just have one sticker here on the top. Boom, seal broken. All value is lost. So I better just open it up and just have it in my collection. It's worthless now, so. Oh man, look at this cape. Oh man, they have such a plasticky smell too. You gotta love the plastic smell. You're a serious collector. Let's see if we can. Oh no, and all the hands fell out. So many. It's a little creepy. Oh boy. Let's just gently pull him out. Oh, he's got a little baggie so that the ring gear does not sit on the figure. Someone finally figured that out. A lot of times accessories or cloth would sit on a figure for a long time on the shelf. It'd bleed the color into the figure, so I wonder long term if that will fix that problem or not. That's pretty smart. I hope it does. Hopefully people can still pick up this figure a long time from now, but hey, if mine bleeds onto him, then oh well. So, how to get that off? Just do a little head removal. Pull off his little feet. That way we can just look at the figure, and then we'll look at the entrance gear also. Alright, we'll hang his gear here. So many hands that it's coming with here. There's finger out, open hand, slightly gestured, and there's just a lot. So we'll mess with the hands here in a little bit. Let's just look at Liger himself, and then something to note of these Storm Collectible figures, they're kind of like bigger than they should be. Like Liger is a junior heavyweight. He's kind of the cruiserweight league, he's many-time junior heavyweight champion at New Japan Pro Wrestling. So with your other figures, he's going to be kind of big compared to opponents of his weight class. I'll get some other figures here. We'll compare them here in a little bit, but just a couple things here. This chest piece is like a rubbery bit. It's not a hard plastic like the leg and arm. And then the middle here is also, I don't know if there's just so much molding that they just wanted to do a separate piece there. So that's something to be careful of. Looks like he just kind of has a skeleton bits underneath this layer, so gives a give, but he's got a couple little tiny details here. The best part of this figure, definitely, outside of just does have extreme articulation and things, although I don't want to stretch him too far because this is an incredibly expensive figure. Not really one I want to test the limits of to the extreme, but I think we'll be able to get him in some crazy poses with things just because he has so many extra layers of joints and things that we're seeing here. Shoulders, but just the mask. And I've never seen, not that I've had too many super amazing, high detail figures like this, but the detail in his mask, you can actually tell it is a mask. It's not just the shape of what the mask would be, just the textures and things on it. You can tell that it's supposed to be a mask. This like stitching and things on the edges. So it's great to see that real detail like that represented just between, Japan and even Mexico with the wrestling mask. Even the depth, you can see his mouth into the mask. It's not just the same layer that you can tell his face is inside the mask. You can just see his lips. I remember first seeing Liger and going, how does he wrestle with all these horns and stuff? Of course, the real masks, these are softer, so you can still get him in a headlock and things, wrestle him, but I did always like he had his hair out of his mask like that. Not that I got to see him too often because He did wrestle in the United States some, but probably more early before I was really watching, and he would have been gone from WCW by the time I was watching also. But I'd say my main introduction of Jushin Liger was probably just video games. Because actually you had the WCW game on Nintendo 64, and that had the AKI man. And you might remember some of his poses from that game. It was just a fake character, but a lot of his moves were Jushin Liger, although it was a mix of a couple other Japanese wrestlers. All those fake characters were actually loosely based on a couple real-world wrestlers that they just couldn't put in the game because they were with another company and things. But so you kind of had that, the gestures and taunts and moves there in that game, and then started getting into Fire Pro Wrestling games where Jushin Liger would have been an actual character in those games. You get the list of the fake wrestlers, rename them to the real, and recolor them. And then we'd get older tapes of wrestling and things, and you'd get to see some things like Jushin Liger. And then even just recent, when I was really watching newer New Japan Pro Wrestling things, that Liger was still there, and he just recently retired in 2020. So he'd always be on the shows that I was watching when I was first getting into really knowing New Japan Pro Wrestling. So this is just a guy that he did that world circuit. You know, he actually trained a lot and traveled to Mexico. That's where he probably got a lot of his lighter weight style, you know, a lot of smaller wrestlers in the other countries. And the U.S. really is the one that favored the huger people, even if they weren't particularly talented to move around the ring. They just wanted the spectacle of the size. But Mexico and Japan more valued the movement, the ability to go, you know, do the flying kind of things, and utilizing that top rope and the dives to the outside. So he was very familiar with that style right from the start, from being in Mexico and getting to come back to Japan and to find his style and then find his gimmick that was just kind of based on there was straight up a show that had the kind of a masked hero like this that was called Jushin Liger on TV, and that's why they wanted to kind of have the character to go with that just because it was popular at the time. But I would say Jushin Liger far exceeded the popularity of just that and made his own career out of this costume and this mask, and, combined with just his wrestling talent and enthusiasm in the ring and ability. So I kind of just recently wanted to start collecting Japanese wrestling figures just because they did announce those Super 7 New Japan Pro Wrestling figures, and so there's no Jushin Liger in that, but Storm Collectibles went this way with Liger, and I was sort of hoping maybe they would mesh together in collection. I can already tell that Liger might be too thick for really matching them, but I think if you kind of do, you know, some kind of pose where he's either down or, you know, you get one of those flight stands that he's up in the air, you know, maybe he's doing the old shooting star press, I think it'll fit in pretty good, even though he's kind of Hulk Hogan sized here with this body. He just has so much detail in his costume that some of the movement makes the design kind of lose its shape, but the mask is the real thing. And then if I haven't even gotten into his entrance gear, just this kind of chest piece, and then this amazing material for the cape. Because then this has wires inside here, so you can kind of do, you know, poses. If it's, is he coming down the aisle and his cape's kind of up, things like that. Just cool stuff like that. It's definitely a higher price premium figure, but it's a lot of the little details here that, you know, maybe you wouldn't have got this entrance piece usually with things like that. So this one of those things that, you know, sometimes I'd probably just like to have him in his normal ring gear, but this entrance stuff is so cool that I might be forced to display him with that. Of course, you probably have to pop the head off most of the time to be able to switch between that, but I think these are a little more modular. These arms do come out and you can pop them right in, so if you do get this and the arm pops out, you know, don't think you broke it, because these pieces it'll come out there. You'll be alright. I don't know if the legs are quite the same because there's the connection to the skeleton down in here. Not to get a big crotch shot here, but I'd say go easy on him. It's not really a figure that's meant to be played with. You don't want to be doing the old wrestling with Storm Collectible, and a little too high priced for something like that. But a lot of my wrestling figure collecting is based off of the video game, so my friend did import the Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 game also, that was those AKI wrestling games, but it was the one with the actual Japan roster, so I did have Jushin Liger on that. It's, you know, it was hard to know all the wrestlers there since we only had a few videos, but Liger was definitely one that was easy to identify, and recognize the entrance music and things like that, and the moves. That just helped us recognize him as one of the. I mean, there's benefits to having the mask and the costume, because people are going to remember you a lot easier when you look like this versus black tights and some boots. I mean, it's been done, but the casual fan is going to be able to connect with this guy a little quicker, but maybe the long term can be harder with a mask. But Liger was able to always show up a lot of personality even through the mask, because this mask really does cover a lot of his face, but a lot of Japanese influence in the mask, just like especially with the teeth and things. It's very much ancient drawings and such style. So let me get some figures to compare this with, just so I can show you the size and if you're going to want to put this into your collection, or if you won't really like the size or not. So first of all, here is a WWE Mattel Rey Mysterio, who would indeed be smaller than Jushin Liger, but probably not this much smaller. Again, Rey Mysterio is probably one of the smallest wrestlers there is, so but just for comparison, here is a WB Mattel Eddie Guerrero, that maybe they would be a little more equal in size, and it's not too bad. It's just that Liger's the legs, I mean, these are like baggy jeans here on Eddie Guerrero, and it's not too bad, but he is pretty big. But where you're going to run into problems is something like this, where you have like a heavyweight wrestler like Macho Man. Surprisingly, they did have a match against each other. You can look that up. You wouldn't think that combo ever ran across each other, but I mean, even just the head, it's just I know Liger has like the more hair and the mask things coming off, but just seems a lot bigger, and he shouldn't be that big. I mean, torso and the legs, so he is just a little bit too big. Here we have the Giant, that would be a 500-pound, 7 foot, and he's not that much taller than Liger. He'd probably be a lot taller. I know he has the horn, but so that's why this Liger is a little bit bigger, but if you were to pose him, maybe he's kind of down doing a pose, then it's not too bad, or if he was again up farther away. So here is the Storm Collectibles Hulk Hogan, which you can see that Hogan would probably be a little bit bigger than Liger, but I think a lot of these are kind of the same, well, they're not the same molds, but I mean, they kind of just are making them the same size instead of to scale, where maybe Hogan would be a little bigger than Liger. I didn't realize Hogan did have these rubber parts, but I guess he did. But wow, that is a terrible bald spot. But you can see where, again, the size is a little weird, but I mean, if you're looking for a figure to represent Liger, I mean, the scale with other wrestling figures isn't there, but I think the attention to detail here is probably the selling point. Here's actually a very early specialty figure I had a long time ago, is the Japan exclusive Ruthless Aggression era Ultimo Dragon. I think the normal figure was kind of a silvery blue and didn't have his chest piece and cape. This is the Japan exclusive that has the red, and then he does have his cape and stuff. I had to import this. This was definitely worth it. Ultimo Dragon's probably more of my favorite kind of masked Japanese wrestler, just because he was in a lot of those WCW video games. So the video games will go a long way in helping let you learn the wrestlers and things like that. But his size, this is a Jakks specific figure, so it's a bigger, but he's matching up okay with Liger. The Liger still does look hulkier and bigger, even though this is a pretty wide chest for Ultimo, who again is a junior weight, cruiserweight wrestler. So I do love this one, but we're talking way better quality and articulation on the Jushin Liger figure versus, so many years ago this Ultimo Dragon figure came out. I did always like having this one, especially since red's more my color. So he is very big, but all his costume is there, and the mask looks really great. Get the entrance gear. Comes with pretty much every hand you might want, although there isn't kind of the traditional, holding an accessory hand. He didn't come with anything, but, I might get him something like, maybe make him a title or something. Is he going to wear it? Is he going to hold it? He's not going to be able to hold it. He doesn't have a hand that can really hold, though. But the swaps are pretty easy. It's a bit of a softer plastic in the hands, so I don't know if you're gonna maybe get a little less of the loose effect from the changing that way. So I wanted this because I'm going to start kind of a Japanese wrestling figure collection in a sense, and a lot of my wrestling collection is more based off of video games and things like that. Liger's kind of been a part of a couple games, even some fake kind of made up character wrestling games, kind of based off of maybe a couple wrestlers combined, but you could always tell Liger was there just because the masked kind of super high flying guy that would show up in a lot of those games. Did finally get to have like a real WWE match on NXT years ago, and he is part of the WB Hall of Fame just because WWE does own, couple other organizations that Liger would have been in, like WCW, so kind of was able to fall under the banner, and after his retirement that they wanted to have a name like him in the Hall of Fame like that. Which is always great to see just a wrestler that wasn't just loyal to their company kind of make it into a wrestling Hall of Fame like that when they deserve it, even though they weren't really part of that company per se a lot. But overall, if they had done something different with the scale and just made smaller parts and made it fit with so many other wrestlers, I could recommend this to just anybody to add Liger, but I think going to be somebody that isn't going to be bothered by that in their collection. This isn't going to bother me too much, the size, just because I'm going to be able to maybe pose him in such a way that he will not stand out too bad. But it's going to be kind of few and far between to add some wrestlers to the collection, so really no better way to start my new Japanese wrestler collection, although I think Ultimo Dragon might be a part of it in a sense in the long run. He'll kind of fit in a little bit there. But for my newer collectibles here, this Jushin Liger figure will be quite a good start to go off of, and then I'll have it to compare to those New Japan Pro Wrestling figures soon, and just always comparing and showing the sizes and things, because that is important to a lot of people. It is important to me. If this was way bigger, then it'd just be impossible to really fit into the collection, but he's close enough. He's going to fit in there and just looks so amazing that I think that'll distract more than the scale, that he just looks like an incredible just specimen of just various mixes of Mexican wrestling, Japanese wrestling, tokusatsu, and just Japan and wrestling and everything just combined into one entertaining package, just to represent the individual that really brought that to life. I didn't see too often, but every time I did, it was a treat to see old Jushin Thunder Liger, so very happy to add this to my wrestling collection. I don't know the words. Palm thrust!